That was good.
Good.
Guys, just to let you know, we are going to be recording this panel. For folks who aren't going to be able to join us this weekend or for this particular panel, we're going to be recording it and posting it. So if you guys don't mind, Brian, if you want to go under your nom de plume, you're welcome to. I'm going by my nom de plume of
Virtual MSC.
Yes.
I'm still here as Brian K. Morris because I want everyone to know who I am.
Well, my nom de plume is.
Craves it.
Well, I was going to say my nom de plume is SB Fuller. If you say it backwards, you get the joke.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to invite you guys. We are going to be doing a special panel at 5 o'clock. We had an event that got canceled, and we're going to be discussing Best Live Superman. It's Reed versus Reeves, Kane versus Cavill, and Ralph versus Ralph. So if you guys want to join in on that, you're welcome to do it. We'd love to have you.
Sure.
But for the folks who are joining us at this time, we are going to be talking about Why Can't They Be Super Friends? For the gentlemen that are joining me, you're my age or older. You remember a time when Superman and Batman used to be friends. They used to be the world's finest. And of course, that all ended in 1980 when in the 1980s when Frank Miller did Batman Returns, which
Dark Knight Returns.
Dark Knight Returns, yes. Sorry. a milestone in graphic novels and a milestone in storytelling, but it did do the one thing that I regret, which is basically, first of all, made everybody think Batman had to be dark and serious and grim and could never smile, and also made everybody think that Superman and Batman could not be friends. They couldn't be equals and couldn't at least find common ground. And that's a story thread that I think a lot of writers and artists since then have taken up. John Byrne, when he rebooted Superman, did that famously, where they put Superman and Batman at odds. They even made a movie about it, Batman v Superman. And I'm going to start the conversation by saying that I've always thought Superman and Batman were characters, in my opinion, that could at least find common ground. They're coming from two different places, but I think they both have a lot of common ground. They both have origins that are they wouldn't be the people they are if it wasn't for the tragedies in their lives. Superman surviving the destruction of Krypton. Bruce Wayne really not surviving the experience of his parents. In a lot of ways, Bruce Wayne didn't survive that. I think Batman was born that night. I kind of agree that Bruce Wayne kind of died in that alleyway. At least the modern telling of it is that's the case. I always go back to Mark Waid's Kingdom Come. There's a great line where Superman is going to Batman to plead for his help, and he makes the plea that the one thing they always had in common was neither one of them ever wanted to see anyone get hurt. They both had that code that neither one of them would kill. And I thought that's the common ground. From that, you can build at least a grudging respect. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I'd like to get your opinions on it. What do you guys think? Elliot, if you'd like to start, you've actually written for these characters. So
I think they're doomed to be friends, no matter what takes place between them. They could have a fight. They could tear each other's heads off, but they're still friends because they have to be. They're equals in a lot of ways in the context of Earth, more than any two people on the planet are. So they can have arguments, they can fall out, they can get into all sorts of nonsense, but they're ultimately friends by any definition, even when they're enemies. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. It does. Brian,
I'll take it next. I think just going on a, maybe it's rationalizing, but I figure Bruce is a good enough detective that he'll figure out that Clark has some positive qualities despite all these godlike powers. And Clark is just going to believe the best about Bruce anyway, and think that even if he's got some rough edges on the ethic, maybe be turned, so to speak. So I agree with Elliot. I think, and you see it in the comics, no matter how much they disagree, the writers keep bringing the two back together.
Well, that settles that.
We're done. Hey, have a nice day. Drive home safely, everyone.
Well, no, we haven't heard from Jeff yet. Jeff, what about you? What about you, my friend?
I think that the two of them are brothers under the skin, whether they like it or not. One is the good brother. The other one is the dark brother. We know which is which. But there is something inherent. First of all, there is the code of do not kill. And by not killing, the two of them are pretty much stuck with each other. And in order for them to at least make the best of being stuck with each other, the two of them have to get along. There's no such thing as a perfect individual, be it in, well, aside from someone like Doc Savage, but especially in modern storytelling, there's no such thing as a perfect person, because that would make a boring story. So you have imperfections both in real life and in modern day comics. And we as individuals, as long as we have a decent head on our shoulders, we learn to look past the differences and the shortcomings of the other person, and we learn to get along. I could just see Clark saying, if Bruce does something that is that goes against his grain, he could just look at it and say, well, he's not hurting anybody. Well, that's just Bruce. So, there is that dynamic, and the dynamic could be what makes for the better storytelling. So being friends is one thing, but being friends, acknowledging each other's shortcomings or missteps, that is something that makes for the good storytelling. How each one of them are able to deal with, like in Batman v Superman, Bruce was actually suiting up to do battle with Superman out of fear of what Superman might be capable of doing should he should he jump the shark, should he jump off the tracks. And Bruce did not know him that well, didn't know Clark as an individual. He just knew Superman's powers based upon what he saw during the fight with Zod, and Bruce seeing the building come down, and that whole sequence where Ben Affleck is helping the people and one person's his employees' legs were pinned, and that whole thing, and just seeing the capability of Superman's powers, that could be very fearful, because he didn't know Clark's moral compass at that time. So,
You want to talk about Superman killing Zod? Because
there's that too. There's
the
that
elephant in
too.
the room.
Yeah. So, yeah, but by the same token, I mean, I've heard a lot of teeth gnashing and ill will about that whole thing about Superman snapping Zod's neck.
it's your
But
imagination.
Yeah.
It's,
But
I,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Well, the thing is, in something like that, you're dealing with Zod saying that he is going to destroy everyone that Superman cares about, and he's going to remake Earth into Krypton. So he's going to kill millions of people. There's the choice. And now we're getting back into Star Trek. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one.
There's a way of defeating somebody without killing him, always.
Yeah.
Isn't that's intrinsic to the character, to storytelling. All he had to do, well, I came up with like half a dozen solutions to that problem while the scene was going, while I was watching. You know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with storytelling these days, everything is dark. Everything is dark. It's not.
No, it's not. No, it's not. When you put an Ayn Rand freak in charge of a character that's antithetical to his philosophy, then you get screw ups like that.
Yeah.
You know, Zach wanted to be the guy who spilled the paint can in the garage. He just wanted to fuck it up. And it's like Tom Wolfe called it the unscrewable pooch. I don't think it's acceptable.
Yeah.
It's ultimately not acceptable in the context of the character.
Can I throw in a question here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, and this is probably going to be more on Don or Elliot are probably going to have to help me out here. But this goes back to the Julie Swartz era. I can't remember exactly which comic it was in, but there was a Superman and Batman are having a tiff. And it boils down to Superman is in disagreement with Batman because of his tactics of fear and using the dark and all that. And I clearly remember Batman tapping Superman's chest and then tapping his own shield and saying, "But I'm not bulletproof." Do you guys,
I
vaguely remember that one, yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the context.
Okay, it's just something I remember, and I'm like, that when you're talking about how they've always had there's an undertow of their conflict of the way they operate, but there's always an undertow. There's also at the same time this constant connectivity to them, that they are all on the same team.
Yeah. I think I agree with you on that. They want the same goals. Basically, neither of them wants to see anybody hurt. Both of them want to go in to help as many people as they can. I think it's all about what happened. I mean, Clark Kent, Kal-El was very lucky. He was found by a loving couple that raised him, and he couldn't remember losing his planet, losing his biological parents. And you had this family that raised him to believe in truth, justice, and the American way, to believe in finding the good in people. Bruce Wayne, on the other hand, had his entire life torn apart when he was a child. I think with Bruce Wayne, and again, going back to the idea that Bruce Wayne died in that alley and was at the night Batman was born, Batman realizes the only way you can beat somebody who's going to try to scare you is to make them even more frightened of you than you are of them. And that's the idea, is to fear them. Justice League, the Justice League animated series, when they did the Death of Superman storyline, had a wonderful scene with Kevin Conroy's Batman visiting Superman's memorial. He's the only member of the team who's convinced Superman's not dead. But he's got a wonderful scene where he talks about, I hope you realized that I always had the utmost respect for you. And there's a wonderful line where he talks about, you taught me that darkness didn't have to come from a dark place. And I like to think Superman, Superman, when it's done right, can bring out the best of all of us, even a character like Batman.
Absolutely.
And
what would happen if Batman's hometown was Metropolis instead of Gotham?
Yeah.
It was. The trouble is New York in the daytime.
So is, yeah.
Night.
Well, what would happen if the I guess the basic,
Okay. The
vibes
dichotomy,
of the city.
the dichotomy between the two characters is that Batman's about the realistic urban ideal. Superman is about the traditional pastoral ideal, the country,
Right. Yeah.
the notion, the Frederick Jackson Turner thing in American history, the Jeffersonian notion that Americanness is born on the frontier and is a product of that, and it's an exploration of that. Neither of them has an ego involved. You know, neither of them wants to be known for the guy who's doing this stuff. I got a theory. Somebody asked me what the world would be like if there were a real Superman in the world, and I said, well, you wouldn't know where he is. You wouldn't ever see him. You wouldn't. He'd be a comic book character if he were real.
Well,
he'd be ideal, and he'd be contriving that to happen that way. I think Batman is the same way. He hides behind a mask, and he doesn't want anybody to know that this gazillionaire is doing all this good stuff in the world, or at least even this questionable stuff in the world. So that they're ultimately similar, or even the same characters, coming from a different aspect of Americanness, I think.
Well, I was going to say, you make a very good point. Neither one of them ever sticks around for thank you. It's,
Right.
you know, Batman says, you don't have to thank me. Superman doesn't stick around for thanks. Plus, two, the persona they put out there in the world, Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter, the guy who goes out of his way never to draw attention to himself. Bruce Wayne, I mean, he basically goes out there and creates this persona where you're like, I don't want to be around this guy because he's such an ass. It's like, who wants to be around Bruce Wayne? I mean, they're putting out these ideas of themselves where nobody would recognize them or want to recognize them, and it's all to hide the secret identity to do good in the world, to be to be the real person they are. With Superman, he takes off the glasses and becomes the person he is. With Batman, he puts the mask on. I did want to raise one point with Jim out Snyder. It worried me a little bit when I heard about Snyder directing Man of Steel, because I remember him saying in an interview where he didn't believe in the Superman ideal. He didn't believe in heroes like Superman. And
Well, that's because Dan ran as a teenager and believed it. He's an objectivist. It's totally antithetical to the notion of the character. They don't believe in altruism. For heaven's sakes, how can you not believe in altruism and write Superman?
I think you have to come. I think you have to come into the character believing in the ideals of Superman. Back in when I was young and I wanted to write for DC Comics, my ultimate Superman Batman story was going to be Batman going to Smallville and being adopted by the Kents, and not adopted like, well, we're going to take you in and you're our new son. It's like it reminded me of what my mom did in college. When I was in college, I had a bunch of friends of mine who didn't have the best relationship with their parents. And my mom basically adopted them. And I remember having a couple of them tell me, I wish your mom was my mom, because she understands me, she talks to me, she doesn't argue with me, and she's supportive of what you do. And I would like to have had that for Bruce Wayne. I wanted him, for Martha Kent, to put him down and say, here, take some pie, talk to me, what's going on, what hurts you? I think that was what was missing with Bruce Wayne, is he didn't have, he didn't have the Kents to raise him. He had the best he had with Alfred and everything, but
he still had Alfred, though. You could imagine Alfred was doing something similar without the maternal aspect of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think it's just the idea.
Alfred enabled him.
Superman got lucky. Superman got lucky with the adopted parents and all.
Yeah, but Alfred's like an enabler.
That's true. He's probably also a better cook too, I suspect. But
Alfred, I would hope, would have taken him aside at some point and just set him down like at 13 or 12 or 13 and say, "Look, your parents wouldn't want this for you. Mm-hmm. They'd want you to find a nice girl, get married, have kids of your own, and find some happiness." again,
Yeah.
I go back to the Tim Bruce Tim universe. Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. There's the wonderful scene where it looks like Batman actually get married, and he's going to his parents' graveside and saying, I never thought I'd be happy."
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing with Superman. Superman was raised to believe you find happiness in the world, you find the good in the world. Batman was raised to never believe he could ever. He's allowed to be happy.
Mhm.
See, and in a sense, that would almost make Superman want to befriend, or Clark want to befriend Bruce.
Yeah.
Because of his disadvantages in childhood.
Clark is the guy who goes in the lunchroom and sees the kid that nobody else wants to talk to because, yeah, he's a jackass, nobody likes him. He's going to sit down and have lunch with him even if he doesn't want to. If the other kid is like, what are you doing? Don't do this. Go away. He's going to stick with him, and
There's no possibility he's not wanting to.
Yeah.
Of course, he'll revel in sitting down with the nerdy kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again,
But Bruce would buy his lunch.
Huh?
But Bruce would buy his lunch.
Well, yeah.
Would buy the cafeteria.
Right.
Because that's Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is, again, it's that flamboyant attitude. It's that whole, and at the same time too, it's the whole idea of Bruce is the billionaire you'd wish you had in real life. This is the kind of character that, again, it's like Bruce Wayne caught in drunken tryst with half-naked models, and the next day it's like you don't know it that he's sending off. He finds out about one of his employees having a kid sick in the hospital and paying off the medical bills. Never mentioning this kind of stuff. Never promoting that kind of stuff.
Well, in a way, you can look at Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne being, just as we look at Superman and Batman being the best of their archetype. Ethically, you could also say the same thing about Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is that 1%er we want to see. The guy who's funneling his money into all kinds of things that'll make the world better, whereas Clark is the journalist who will do what it takes to root out a story, doesn't fear corrupt politicians or what have you, just so he can get at the truth. So in essence, to me, both sides of the identity coin are, basically the best of what we would like to see humanity being.
Yeah. I remember one of the great modern takes on Superman was from Lois Lane's point of view, and talking about all the stuff that Superman does, but the stuff that nobody ever sees Clark Kent do. And talking about taking the time to talk to a fellow coworker about what's going on in their life, taking the time to listen. This is a guy who has potentially the largest voice in the room, and yet he talks the softest. And it's this whole. There's a great line, I've used it several times since, about the jackass that talks the loudest is the one that has the least amount to say. And the person who talks the softest is the one who doesn't need to raise their voice, because what they're going to say is wisdom, and that is what the character is. But no, I agree. I think we like to see in ourselves. We like to see both these characters. We like to see the best of Superman and the best of Batman both. Superman, the character that has all these powers and abilities. It's like Lex Luthor has said several times before. He's a god. He should be running the planet, and yet he's saving kittens out of trees and helping old ladies cross the street. And a character like that doesn't understand that that's what you do with real power. You don't abuse it, you use it. You use it for the betterment of mankind. Batman, the peak of physical perfection, the peak of mental perfection. I mean, we're probably talking about the greatest living specimen of mankind on the planet in terms of physical and in terms of mental. And I know myself, this is the kind of thing. I had a hospital stay last year, and I was in rehab for like 3 months and with a bad knee. And I remember I kept pushing myself every day a little bit farther and farther, taking a few more inches steps. And I kept saying to myself, I'm Batman. It's crazy, but that's what got me through it, because I'm like, that's what Batman would do. Batman would push himself to the limit, and that's what I said. I've got to do this. I've got to be Batman.
Did you get the titanium knee? You get a replacement?
I did not, but I am able to walk around with a cane at this time, so I'm very happy about that. Which is good, because they were like, they didn't know if I was going to be able to walk around without a walker for a while. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, they tell me that's in my future. I don't know. I
I
think that's a good attitude to take. I think I'm gonna.
I've got one with me just to be on the safe side, because every now and then it gets a little wobbly, and walking around sometimes it'll hurt a little bit. So I have it, but just being able to walk around the house without a cane, I'm very happy about that. So. And I just realized we jumped in on this conversation. We have got folks that have joined us that don't even know who some of us are. And I'd like to just take a moment for you guys to introduce yourselves real fast. So, Elliot, you're by far the biggest name here. No offense to you guys, but please let folks know who you are.
All right. Hi, I'm Elliot. I wrote, who knows? I wrote Superman from 71 to 86. The part of the history that nobody pays attention to. When they built Metropolis, I was writing Superman.
Elliot, do you mind if I jump in? Elliot's
Sure.
much too modest. Elliot probably wrote some of the best Superman stories of my childhood. And I would say you and Carrie Bates were my Superman writers when I was a kid. So
Talked to Carrie yesterday. He says hi.
I actually invited him to be a part of this, but he wasn't able to make it.
He doesn't do that.
We'll get him next time.
He doesn't. He's not much for like showing up.
But let me just assure everybody, Elliot is way too modest. Elliot is a hell of a writer. He's a hell of a Superman writer, and we are honored to have you with us, sir.
Well, thank you.
Jeff, how about you, my friend? Tell the folks who you are.
Hi, actor, and getting much more into writing now. Voiceovers, puppeteer, and fan.
Jeff, again, you like Ellie, you're way too modest. Jeff is our super fan. I'm going to be interviewing him a little bit later today. I've had the honor of knowing this man for 15 years. I know he has got a heck of a career. Appearances on the Superboy TV series with Noel Neill and Jack Larson, Swamp Thing, The Punisher, and if I may say, also voice of the Joker for Six Flags. Plus your work with the Muppets. In fact, I remember the very first con we did together, I pointed out you're the only man that ever got to play the Joker and the Penguin.
When did I play the Penguin?
Well, you did one of the Muppet Penguins, right?
Oh yeah. Well, those were the dancing penguins. Yeah.
But you were still the Penguin and the Joker. So
technically I was. Yeah. And I got to do a play with Frank Gorshin, the Riddler.
Yes.
So there's another one.
This is what I love about these guys. This is why I want them on the panel. They're extremely modest and they undersell themselves. Trust me, these are great men we've got with us today, and I'm very honored to have you guys too. I'm going to go with my buddy now, Brian Morris. Brian, tell the people who you are. Tell them how much we're...
I was going to say, I'll make up for Elliot and Jeffrey as far as ego goes. Not that I'm prepared to talk about myself, but everybody knows, I'm part of Rising Tide Publications. That's a company my wife owns, really. I'm Facebook famous because I have this show, which Elliot pops up on every now and then, and I go all fanboy on him. And plus, I'm a writer of comics and books and such, and I've been attending the Superman celebration every year since 1999, and Elliot, I gotta say, is probably the most embarrassing moment I've ever had at the Superman celebration was when I was doing the Q&A with Elliot, and we were going to throw it to somebody in the back, and of course we're in the middle of the Superman celebration, and I'm like, you in the back wearing the Superman shirt. And Elliot gave me this look like, I will treasure that till the end of my days. So,
well, I didn't know that was embarrassing.
I'm just like, of all the stupid things I could say at this show in front of one of the people I respect the most, it had to be that. And the thing was, I did the very same thing the very next day. So.
Well, but I was going to say, I also wanted to say also that plan we were talking about, telling everybody about how we're in love with each other. Wait until Cookie first, and then we'll make the announcement, okay?
Okay.
I mean, I shouldn't be recording that. I'm sorry. Just ignore everything that was said. Ignore that. Okay.
She knows. She knows. She's in the next room, in fact. So.
Tell her to come on. Tell her to come on.
Hi, Cookie.
Hey, Cookie.
Everyone. Hiya, she says. She doesn't do in-person appearances. She's like Batman.
There you go. She's like I said, you know, she never sticks around to say for the things. So there you go.
Right, exactly. It's her. So, but I'm flattered to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm like I said, I'm honored to have all three of you here. And for folks who don't know me, my name is Dan Johnson. I am a newbie to Superman Days. I intended to come this year, and then that lovely thing called 2020 hit, and everything went to pot. So. But for folks who don't know me, I am a comics writer, comics historian, and I love talking about superheroes and Superman, and I will run my mouth the entire day. And you'll probably see me on a lot of panels. So get used to this face. I've had to do it, so you got to do it too. So there you go.
And you forgot to mention talk about Modest. You forgot to mention one of my favorite comics that you work on.
I was about to say.
Okay.
Dennis the Menace.
I am a gag writer for Dennis the Menace also.
And
I just recently started working on the Mark Trail comic strip. And I've done work for the Brewster Rocket comic strip. And because I made you guys do this, I'm going to do it myself. I'm also the writer-editor of Cemetery Plots for Empire Comics Lab.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the head writer and editor and co-editor of Golden Kid Comics, which is a comics company devoted to making comic books for children. And Mr. Morris and I are actually working on a project right now that we find to be quite wonderful. That's all we're going to say about it.
mm-hmm.
We're excited. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about this. I know Brian's excited about it also, and we're hoping we can actually unveil this by next year, because my game plan is to work on this over the summer. Basically, I'm a huge nerd, and I've done nothing but read comic books and watch old TV shows and movies since I was a kid. So this is all I talk about. That's me. This debate I'm having right now, I've had this debate since I was 8 years old. So that's me. This is the kind of stuff I used to talk about. And I'm pretty sure we were all ahead of the curve. We were talking about this earlier. We're probably about 30 years ahead of the curve as far as liking this kind of stuff, whereas only now it's becoming mainstream, where people are like watching comic book movies and watching TV shows based on The Flash and Supergirl and such. So.
I'm alternately annoyed and delighted with the way pop culture is going.
Yeah.
I've been an advocate of this stuff since the dawn of time.
Were you with us when we were talking about the Flash TV series when it first premiered?
No, I was busy having a bad day.
Oh, no problem. Well, I have those myself sometimes. I usually talk about comic books and it cheers me up. That's me. But we were talking about the Flash TV series when it first came out. I had some friends of mine that started watching it, and the episode they had with Grodd, I had a friend of mine say, they had a talking ape on there last night. It was the coolest thing. Did they ever do that in the comic books? And I'm like, yeah, they had Grodd a couple of times. And I'm like, wait till you get to Gorilla City.
Yeah,
that's gonna be really cool too. But I told people this is like, it's like being a fan of a band for 30 years, and then all of a sudden somebody listens to one of their songs, and it's like, wait a minute, did you hear about this great band? They've been around forever and a day. It's like, yeah, I've known about them.
Carmine loved gorillas. He just loved gorillas.
Gorillas are monkeys in general. That was one thing we were talking about, Superman versus Batman. Who's better? And it's like Superman. Superman had a monkey. He had a super monkey.
Yeah.
Batman did not have. Batman had a utility belt. He had a bat cave. He had a Batmobile. Multiple Robins, but he never had a monkey.
Hey.
What's that?
He had a dog. He had a
Well, they both
dog.
Well, they both had dogs, but he never had a monkey.
The dog with a mask on, that drives me crazy.
That's so nobody would discover his secret identity. It's to protect the rest
Imagine
of the
revealing his true identity to the poodle down the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's she gonna tell?
Well, yes, it's that whole comic book logic in the 1950s. It's like Bruce Wayne found a dog, and it looks just like the dog Batman's running around with, and it's like, serious? Wait a minute.
Well, those animals were all pretty smart. If you ever noticed that, Beppo and Crypto and Super Baby and all the kids all use the same language, and the Bizarros too. Me go to that fence there. Me tear a hole in it. Like they misplaced their pronouns, and somehow they were all on the same intellectual footing.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest with you, I've heard some Hollywood actresses that talk the same way. It's like, me go over there, be do scene. It's like, yes, you go over there, do scene. Read dialogue.
It's like they went to the Yoda School of Elocution.
Yes, indeedy. Casting couch you must do. That we shall make.
If you expect more of a dog, it'll fulfill your expectations. I had a dog who understood entire sentences. Absolutely. If she only had the vocal cords in place, she could have talked.
Well, it was all with Ace the Bat Hound, and that's how nerdy I am. I remember it was Ace the Bat Hound. He was actually able to save Batman and Robin a couple of times, so that's a good dog.
Never heard Crypto doing that.
That's true. That's true. Well, Crypto was smart enough to be his own dog. He was you can actually hear Crypto thinking and everything. It's like
I told Nelson Bridwell, don't put thought balloons on the dog. It just doesn't fit in terms of character. And he says, well, only a few.
I always thought Crypto was smart enough where he'd actually be smarter than most humans, just being Kryptonian. So I can understand that. I think it was one of the Superboy comics where they went to great lengths to try to hide Crypto's super identity, or Crypto actually hid his own identity by staining his coat with like brown stainer, so he gave himself some spots and everything, and he took his cape off, and Martha Kent called him Skippy, and he was even thinking to himself, well, at least they didn't call me Bart Kent.
Bark Bent.
Yeah. Probably they didn't put a pair of glasses on him.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I guess we make this part of the whole Superman Batman thing too. It's like best animals. I'd say Crypto myself, just because again, it made a little bit more sense. I don't see Batman as being a bat person. I actually see him. Well, I was gonna say I see him more as a cat person, but that can go to a whole different conversation, and we want to try to keep this PG-13, so we're probably not gonna go there.
He's a cat person when Selena's around.
Definitely, yes.
Oh, yeah. I go with Crypto too. I think Crypto's a big deal, a bigger deal than anybody ever realized. I wrote a proposal for a Crypto graphic novel once, and the editor I gave it to, he said, well, this is a non-starter, this will never happen. So I wrote it as a short story, and it came out to like 75 pages, for heaven's sake, a novella. And then they brought Crypto back and did a whole thing. They put her on television, for heaven's sake. It drives me crazy. That's all.
And last time we were talking about the last Alan Moore story, What Are Happening to the Man of Tomorrow. You got that wonderful scene where everybody is sacrificing themselves for Superman, even Crypto, going after the Kryptonite Man. And I'm like, that's loyalty right there. That's the loyalty of a good dog right there.
That's a dog. Yeah.
Ace the Bat Hound, on the other hand, is taking a leak on the Batmobile and run away by that point. It's like, I'm out of here. Because he's just a German Shepherd who you put in a mask, for God's sake. He's trying to get the mask off and everything. It's like, you're embarrassing me over here. Yeah. Don't do that.
Put a mask on him, you think he's a poodle.
Plus, let's face facts. Superman, Supergirl. He only lost Supergirl one time. Batman keeps going through Robins like every other week. It's like that's. I wouldn't be signing up for Batman sidekick because their life expectancy is not that great.
No.
Plus, too, there's the whole idea of Batman blending into the night with the black and gray costume and then putting the little kid out there in the red and green yellow costume.
Bait.
Yeah.
Robin, boy hostage.
Yeah.
Or like Robin Boy Target. It's like. But like I said, going back to the comics I read as a kid. Like I said, I read the World's Finest books. And I know that was part of a marketing thing with DC. They were like, we're having to cut the pages on World's Finest. We got Superman and Batman both, and put them in a feature together. That way, we got both of them selling the book, and that's where that came from. But again, I grew up with that whole idea of these two characters being best friends. When I was a kid, I looked at that and I thought that's the ideal best friend right there, the Superman Batman situation.
Like,
characters that work together.
We never have. I mean, not for 50 years. I think we had a conversation about 5 years ago. And he put on Facebook, he says, I couldn't believe it. I had an intelligent conversation with my brother. And I said, wait a minute. Did we do that? Okay. So, I'm not going to abandon my brother, for heaven's sakes. It's like the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know which one of us is the dark one. Probably me.
Well,
But just by default.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think it kind of goes back to the changing attitude in comics in the '80s, where everybody thought comics had to be dark and gritty. And I know it was Frank Miller changed the whole idea about Superman and Batman couldn't be friends. He's the one that said they absolutely positively can't be buddies. And I think everybody just kind of ran with that since Dark Knight Returns did so well.
And it was Frank Miller, and I remember then seeing that in World's Finest as well, and it kind of disappointed me. I think that was probably one of the signs of real, genuine cynicism creeping into mainstream comics at the time. It was a little disappointing to me because I grew up, Batman and Superman were best buds, and then all of a sudden they're, they just seem like on a flimsy reason, that suddenly they're like this all of a sudden. It's like, no, like I said earlier, they'd work it out. So,
well, that's something I wanted to go back to. I know part of the thing was in the '80s. Like I said, I was about 15 or 16 when Dark Knight came out, and I remember guys that were collectors at the time, my age and a little bit older. They were going on about, yeah, Batman's finally a badass again, and everybody's going to forget about Adam West and how that silly Batman TV series, and they're going to take Batman seriously from now on. And that's where the whole thing came in of, yeah, well, Superman's boring because Superman's a big Boy Scout, and Superman's not going to be cool like Batman is. He's not going to be a badass like Batman is. And Man of Steel, when it came out, I remember having a conversation with several of my friends that had been in that camp of, yeah, Superman's dull, Superman's boring. They were the ones that were the most upset about him killing Zod. They were the ones that were the most upset, and I'm like, you know what it is? Superman's boring and dull in the same way that your dad's boring and dull. But the thing is, at the end of the day, you can depend on dull and boring. You want dull and boring. It's the whole thing about women want to date Batman, but they want to marry Superman. They want the guy who's going to be dependable. All of a sudden, you got what you've been screaming out for years. You wanted Superman to be a badass. You got it. And then all of a sudden, you realize you never wanted that. You don't want Superman to be that character. And with Zack Snyder, it reminds me a little bit, going back to the idea about he didn't believe in this character, he didn't believe in the ideal of this character. It reminded me of when I was in college. I had a theology class I took, and one of my professors was actually tapped to be an advisor on a film about Christ that Paul Verhoeven was going to make. The guy who did RoboCop and Total Recall. And I remember getting a chance to actually meet Paul Verhoeven in class, and the subject came up, and Verhoeven was like, "Well, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God and Christ. I believe it's all a fairy tale." And somebody asked him, "Well, if you don't believe in Christ, why do you tell a story?" And he honestly could not give an answer to that. I think that's the same thing with Snyder. It's like, why do you want to tell a Superman story if you don't believe in this character? And that would be my question to anybody who wants to write superhero comics. If you don't believe in superheroes, why write them? What's the purpose? I'm a little old-fashioned. I'm like, I want my superheroes to get along together. I want them to find the good in each other that they try to find in the rest of the world.
Where'd you go to school?
Greensboro College.
Where?
Greensboro College in Greensboro, North Carolina. Yeah, like I said, the professor was tapped. I cannot remember his name, unfortunately. I only had a couple of classes with him. But the film never got made. But Verhoeven came in, it was January of 1990, because I remember Total Recall had just come out. And I sat through half the class and had to leave because we had a huge snowstorm that was coming in. I lived off campus. I lived like about 10 miles away. So I had to drive through the snow to get home. But if you've ever seen the movie The Fourth Man, Verhoeven did.
No.
Verhoeven did this film called The Fourth Man. It's about a guy who falls in love with this woman, and he's the fourth lover that she's had, and the other three I will not describe it. There's a particular scene that if you're a guy, you will cringe when you see what happens to him in his dream sequence. And that was all anybody could talk about. And my thing was, when I got a chance to talk to him, I just talked about how much I loved him using black humor, and he had this look on his face like, "You get it, black humor. That's what I was going for. We go for the dark humor." And I'm like, yeah. Nice guy, very nice fellow. But I was just like, I still want to know, if you don't believe in the material, why make the movie? Why commit yourself?
I think so many people, especially in comics, want to deconstruct a character, and maybe Zack Snyder is like the version of that fanboy we never want to become, in a cinematic sense. That maybe he wanted to pull Superman off the pedestal that the rest of us have put him on.
That could be it. The thing about it was, I was actually very pleased with Ben Affleck as Batman. I thought he did a good job casting him, and I'm in that camp where I actually enjoyed the Watchmen movie. I thought he did a good job with that. A little too violent, a little too gorier than the actual book, but casting was fantastic. I mean, Morgan is the comedian.
Love the Leonard Cohen song.
Oh yeah.
Jagger O'Haley is Rorschach. Everything about that was just perfect. It's just, and again, directing characters like Batman and directing characters like Watchmen, he's great. It's just Superman. Even then, there were a few moments where even the goodness of Superman kind of shines through, where even if you're a complete cynic, there are still some moments. Cavill, I think, managed to still bring a little bit of that out, just because Cavill was believing the material.
Well, I think it was Danny O'Neill who once said that Superman is so powerful he can even survive bad writing.
That's true. That's very true.
I've been missing him for a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say, for folks who have not heard, we found out about Danny O'Neill's passing the other night. Yeah, and
That's why I had a bad day yesterday.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a good guy.
He was. Great.
Yeah, seriously.
There was a beautiful tribute on Facebook by Michael Uslan.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Elliot, I gotta say, I met Denny several years ago, and he was such a nice man. And I mean, some of the tributes I've seen from other artists and comics people of how he gave them their start. I mean, his impact was huge.
Yeah.
So sorry for the loss.
We talk about Frank Miller being responsible for this rift between Batman and Superman, but Didn't John Byrne touch on that in the Man of Steel miniseries? Wasn't there a little bit of a
That post-dated.
You're right. You're right. You're right, Doug.
It was after the fact though, and I remember Superman. There's even a line about Superman cleaning up Metropolis, and I think he makes a comment about I was eventually going to get around to you too because I've heard all these stories about you being a crazy man in Gotham. There's that wonderful bit where Batman says he's hitting a bomb, and if Superman tries to attack him, an innocent man's going to die. And at the very end, you find out the bomb's been on Batman the entire time.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful. I know John Byrne is a huge Star Trek fan, and it reminded me of the Balance of Terror episode with Mark Lindard as the Romulan commander and William Shatner as Captain Kirk. Batman's got that wonderful line in the last panel after Superman's flying off and about remarkable man. It's really amazing. Yeah. In another reality, I may have called him friend.
Right.
So. I think with DC, maybe going the route they did in the comics, where it's a little bit more begrudging initially, but eventually there's that respect that's there. But I think eventually it gets to a point where Superman and Batman are going to have to be the characters that are going to have to find the common ground. Because I think just because they are, I think these are the two guys. If you walk into the room of the Justice League headquarters, these are the two guys that even if they're on the opposite sides of the room, you're going to be drifting towards the middle because it's like, well, that's Superman. He can kill you with his eyes, just by shooting lasers at you. There's Batman who can kill you just by looking at you, just because he's got that glare. And it's like you're intimidated. You're a little bit frightened by both of them because of what they can do. And I think because of the fact they are the big guns in the room, they're going to have to be gravitating towards each other because they've got to acknowledge each other. They're the two alphas in the room, I think. And that makes them have to at least find some common ground, if not eventual friendship.
I would kind of hope that the two of them would figure out a way to get along, through the writers, that Batman and Superman would finally be able to work things out, if only to be an example for the audience.
Yeah. That's a very good point. That is a very good point indeed. It's a great lesson to the kids. It's like even if you've got different approaches to things, you can at least put those differences aside. All it takes is one kid going, my mom's name is Martha. What's your mom's name? Martha too? We can be buddies.
Yeah.
Which I have to admit is probably the one moment in the film I was kind of like going there, whatever works. If it works, okay. But
that was like a jump the shark moment for me in that film.
I think it's kind of interesting that it took them 80 years to come up.
No, it's just
you got Brandon wearing a Batman mask over here, so you're gonna.
I know. I got this from Matt Wacker, so shout out to him, even though I don't think he's here.